In this tutorial, we're going to be making a door in Blender. First, go into the scene properties and make sure that your units are based in metric. Then, go into front view by pressing 1 on the numpad. By pressing Shift A, open up a reference image that you're going to be using to model this door. If you want to use the same image as myself, you can find that in the description. Select the cube, enter edit mode and click on the X-ray button in the top right hand corner. Select the leftmost edges, press G and then X to move the vertices inward. The height and width of a door is about 2 meters by 90 centimeters, which is why it is important to make sure that your units are correctly set. If you want, you can press 3 on the numpad to move into write mode, select everything and adjust the depth. However, in a minute we will be making changes to this anyway. To make sure that the dimensions are completely correct, you can use the measure tool in edit mode. Here we've got about 2 meters, and on the width we've got approximately 90 centimeters, so not bad. Looking at the door, you can see by drawing horizontal and vertical lines that you can split the door into sections, and this is what we're going to replicate on our model. Click on the model and then enter edit mode. Press Ctrl R and then use the middle mouse button to create 4 vertical lines and then again to create 4 horizontal lines. You should have this kind of grid. We're going to move the lines so that we can roughly make out the outline of the panels on the door. Select all of the vertices you created in that first line, then press G and then Z or Z followed by 0.275 to move that into position. Do the exact same with the bottom set of vertices, except now you're choosing minus 0.275. Next, choose the middle lines of vertices and press S to scale, followed by Z and then 0.15. When you are happy with the horizontal set of lines, select the leftmost set of vertices you created, then press G, X and minus 0.05 to move that into position. Then, do the exact same for the rightmost set of vertices you created, except G, X, and 0.05. Then select the middle 2 lines of vertices, press S to scale, then X, and then 0.33. This will make the small little panel in the middle. On the numpad, press 3 to go into the write mode, and then select the rightmost set of vertices and delete them. What we're going to do is use a mirror modifier so that any changes that we make to one side of the door will appear on the other side as well. So go into your modifiers, select mirror, and then choose an axis of Y and make sure that clipping is turned on. We're going to give the door some depth by selecting all of the vertices, pressing E and then Y to extrude along the Y-axis until it meets its mirror counterpart. Great! Now, still with edit mode selected, click on the Face Select tool and then click on each face of the panels, pressing X to delete and then Faces. You should be left with 4 holes in the center of your door. We're going to try to build out the 4 panels of the door. Having a look at the reference image, you can see that there are ridges of the panel, and that's what we're going to try to recreate. In edit mode, with vertex mode selected, click on the face which is closest to you on one of the panels. Then, press E, then Y, then 0.015, followed by S to scale by 0.675, then finally scale again, pressing Z and 1.3. This will bring a nice oblong shape to your panel. On the diagonal between the face you created and the edge of the panel, click on Ctrl R and then use the middle mouse button to create 2 edge loops. By holding Alt and Shift, click on the 2 edge loops you just created as well as the middle face. We're going to move these back into the door. So press G, then Y, then 0.01, and then deselect the outermost loop so you have just 2 selected, and click on G, y, and minus 0.01. Do the same thing with the second loop, so you are just looking at the third, and choose g, y, and minus 0.015. And this finishes the basic panel. Now all you have to do is the exact same procedure for the other 3 panels. So let's do that. Okay, with the door finished, we're now going to turn our attention to the door handle. So, first create a cube by pressing Shift A and then selecting Mesh and then Cube. Press S to scale by 0.1 and then S again followed by X and 0.25. This will create a nice rectangle for you. Go into write mode by pressing 3 on the numpad, then pressing S to scale followed by Y and 0.05 to reduce the depth of the cube. Make sure to rename the object to something like door handle base or door handle. Talking of the handle, let's create that. So create a new cube by pressing Shift A, Mesh, and then Cube, then pressing S to scale by 0.01, followed by S, Z, and 0.85. Press 3 on the numpad to go into right view. Then click on the leftmost face and press E followed by Y and minus 0.02 to extrude the handle outwards. From here, select the right face, then press E to extrude X and 0.085. This should make a nice handle. Then let's move the handle into a slightly better position. Now let's turn our attention to creating the lock or the keyhole. So create a cylinder and rotate it by pressing R, then X, and then 90 degrees. Scale it by pressing S and 0.008, and then translate it downwards by pressing G, then Z, and minus 0.05. Create a cube and scale it by pressing S and 0.005. We'll translate it again, so press G, then Z, then minus 0.06. In edit mode, select the bottommost set of vertices and extrude by pressing E and 0.002. We'll scale this inwards, so press S, but this time press Shift Y so that we don't scale in the Y direction. Scale it by 0.8. Let's extrude again, so E and 0.002. Scale, Shift Y, and 0.6. And one more time, extrude E, 0.001, Shift Y for scale, and 0.2. When you're happy with that, make sure to move the bottom section into place. Now we're going to create the actual keyhole. So in the topmost cylinder, select face mode and then delete the top face. Go back into vertex mode and select the edge of vertices around the cylinder. Press E to extrude, then S and 0.4 to scale inward. Then do it again, but scale S, X and 0.4 to make an oval shape. With the oval still selected, press E, then Y and 0.005 to extrude inwards. Then do it again to just close the face. You can do this a few times as you want. Now maneuver the lock into position on the door handle frame. You can make small adjustments to the mesh so that it doesn't go through the door handle if you'd like. However, this will be hidden by the door, so it's not too important. In the real world, objects are never completely straight and rigid, so we're going to add a subdivision modifier to our handle so it looks a little bit more natural and a bit more like the reference picture. So that we can maintain roughly straight edges with a little bit of rounding, we're going to go into edit mode and press Ctrl R to create edge loops and slide them to the edges of the mesh, and we'll do that everywhere. It's slightly more difficult with the mesh of the lock, but the principle is exactly the same. Just press Ctrl R and move or slide the edge loops into position along the mesh lines. When you're happy with all of that, select the door handle base in object mode, then go down to modifiers and select subdivision modifier. Change the levels viewport to 2 and you can see the effect that this has had on the mesh. It's rounded it off slightly. Let's perform the same thing on the actual handle and make sure right-clicking to shade smooth. Go down to the lock, add the subdivision modifier, put it up to 2, and if there's any problem with the mesh, make sure you add additional edge loops, as I'm doing here. Great. On this door, we have a secondary lock near the top. So all we're going to do is copy the one that we've already created and put a cylinder underneath it. Select the lock object and then press Shift D to move this into position further up. Okay, so let's create the cylinder base. So create a new cylinder, then R, then X, then 90 to rotate it, and scale it down until it's roughly the same size as the door handle base. Shift it up by pressing G and translating it up, and then scale it along the Y axis and move it into position with the lock. Make sure to select Shade Smooth on the cylinder base. And that's it. Select all of those objects and then translate them onto the mesh of the door so that they're roughly in line with how you see them in the reference photo. If you want, you can create a door frame by scaling a new cube, making sure that the size of the frame is slightly larger than the door itself. On the top and the bottom, make sure that there is a slight overhang. So we're almost done with the modelling, and the last thing we're going to create are the door hinges, and these are just simple cylinders. So in object mode, create a new cylinder and shrink it down, and then move it into place by using the translate tool. Zooming in, let's do some further manipulation by doing some scaling and translating until the cylinder is roughly the same size on our door as it is on the reference photo. When you're happy with the size, click on the object and press Shift D to duplicate it. Then Shift click to select both objects and Shift D again to duplicate both hinges at the same time. We'll do this one more time, Shift D, and then move the third hinge down into position at the lower end of the door. And that's it for the modelling. If you want to see how we apply materials to the door, make sure to watch the next video.